Hello there, this is Shane from Shane's Reviews, and I hope that you are having a great day today. So, what will we be talking about? Ender's Game. Now, don't think that we've talked about this on the channel before in depth, but I know I have mentioned it. Please forgive me. I shut a door rather hard a while ago, and a bunch of ceiling stuff came down, and might have gotten in my eye. Ender's Game was wrote by Orson Scott Card, and the specific one I'm talking about is the one from Audible, which is the 20th anniversary version, and there's a lot of people that narrated it. So some of the people that were in this one is Stefan Rudnicki, Harlan Ellison, and Gabrielle Decour. But this is book one of many books that came out in this universe. And there's actually a couple of series inside of it. There's the first series that follows Ender, and then there's a secondary series that follows Bean, and then there's a series that follows The Offspring. And so the books didn't come out where it was like, here's Ender's book, here's Bean's book, here's the kid's book. Now we're moving on to the second story. Story A, which was Ender, was wrote, I believe that I'm correct in this, but I think that was wrote first, then the Shadow series, and then the rest of it came. And there's even a prequel because there was a lot of interest in what was happening leading up to the first Formic War. So there's a lot of very unique and diverse characters in this. And the way that this is set up, it's pretty neat to see. So if you're looking for a sci-fi thing that you haven't read before, that's about space and about fighting in space, this one will fit that bill. And it might not sound that very interesting. On the jacket cover of it follows this young kid that goes into a battle school and all that kind of a thing, but there's a lot of narration that goes behind the scenes. And since we've kind of covered a couple movies here and there, it's probably the reason why the movie was so misunderstood and so misliked by those that knew the material. Because in the book, the way it's presented is, here is kid, and there's this big narrative that's behind the kid of what he's doing, why he's doing it, what his motivations are, the thoughts and sometimes the feelings of the people around these characters. And so that in itself is an interesting but good storytelling way of doing things. So instead of it being Ender said to this person said to this person, Ender was sad, it wasn't like that, not at all. Instead, there's a lot of use of showing and not telling. And that's good. Still got something in my eye. So let's talk about the narrations. This was probably one of the first audiobooks that I ever picked up. I hadn't really been interested in audiobooks until I got, not the 20th anniversary, but one that was done well before that one, back in the 2000s, like 2004, 2005, somewhere around there. I had missed the train altogether. I had never heard of this book, and somebody at that time that I was working with came to me and was like, hey, I think you might enjoy this. Why don't you check it out? And handed it to me, and I listened, and I was actually quite amazed by the story. And the reason why is because you forget at times that this kid is incredibly young, like preschool, kindergarten young. But the thoughts that this character has, the abilities that this person has, even as a child, is on par with 40 and 50-year-old veterans of life in the way that they approach things, look at things. So yeah, it's about some very intelligent children, that's for sure. But there's so much that happens in the first book. And I don't want to get into a whole lot of those sorts of details. I want you to kind of go into it blind and not really have any expectations and see where you get to if you've never read it before. Because that's the way that I experienced it, and it was a really good way to get into it and to enjoy it. Some of the characters that I mentioned, of course, there's Ender, which Ender is a nickname for Andrew Wiggin. Andrew Wiggin is a third, what they're calling a third. Now, in today's society, we all know that there are particular rules in particular countries that say that you can only have so many children, and that there's ramifications for those sorts of things if you break that rule, or if you have enough money, you can surpass that rule. Now, imagine a society where that was global, where you can only have 2 kids and that's it. If you have more than 2 kids, then the kid's education, which is usually free in a public school, the kid's education wouldn't be covered, particular aspects of this and this and this wouldn't be covered, there'd be tax. And then there is the public shame of having more than 2 kids. You are ostracized. People don't want to talk to you because you're going against what is good for society as a whole. So here comes Ender. The way that he was brought into the world was his parents were approached by the government and they were asked to have an additional child. Now, why? Why would that happen? Why would I care that they were Well, it's simple. They have this program where they take young kids that are highly gifted and very capable of command or learning how to fight in space with commanding ships and fleets, etc. They take them to the station and then they train them to be the best commanders that they could possibly be. There's one child that Andrew Wiggins' parents had that was just a little too vicious, but was in that genius level. And then there was another one that was just a little too empathetic. And so they knew ultimately she wouldn't do what would be needed to be done. And then Andrew, he was kind of the mix of both of them, and that's what they were hoping for, and that's what they got. And oh boy, did they get what they were looking for in Andrew Wiggins. So he starts to become known as Ender because whenever it comes to him having a problem, the way that he solves it is he tries to solve it permanently. He will use too much force, or he will do this, or he will absolutely decimate whatever, so that these problems, bullies, etc. won't come back on him later on in life. It was unique to see the emotional diversity of the characters, especially Andrew, through this entire thing. It was unique to see if the children were actually that intelligent, what they would be able to accomplish. There's a couple of storylines that go through this, and it's unique to see how Ender, with that personality type that he is able to make friends and start to pull people around him, and if they're able to actually pull off this big thing that the entire globe's governments are trying to get them to pull off or not. Then also there's the consequence of what they're doing, because that's not left out in this. There's been books before that I've read where it's like, the person is an unstoppable army of just one, and it would take an entire country's army to take them down. Well, these kids, they're just that, they're kids. They're not emotionally developed yet, especially not at like 6 and 8 and 11 years old. They don't have the capacity that an adult would have. It's the uniqueness of that story. It's the way that they felt. It was the realness of what the characters were going through and their journey through what they were doing, and then also seeing how they evolved or didn't evolve. Also, the emotional consequences for them of what they were doing and how it would drain them. So overall, whenever it comes to a standoff, one thing story, Ender's Game is an incredible read for sci-fi readers, for people that enjoy space and uniqueness, because all these little intricacies like that throughout this entire thing that makes it well worth reading. So it's one of those things. It's time for that awkward award. Yes, the clap award. Scraps, if you would please bring the trophy up. Yes, we should have come up with a better name than the clap award. But congratulations, Orson Scott Card, you've got the clap. Now here's the thing. If you do pick this up, don't try to read things in order. Big clue here. If you're still watching, you're going to get the nicest heads up that you've had about this series. Read all of the Ender books first. Then read all the Bean books, then read everything else. And the reason why I'm saying that is the Shadow series is a complement to the Ender series. And so there's a lot of, if you don't know what's happened here and here in the first story, this book might not make that much sense, and then this one will be ruined for you. So keep that in mind. It's not a virus. I swear it's not. I swear it's not. Summer's just a bad time for me with allergies. I swear. Scraps. Is it worth your time, efforts, and energies? My God, yes it is. Please, if you haven't read it and you like sci-fi, get it and read it. And let me know what you think about it, because there's a lot of interesting play in between the characters. There's a lot of interesting narration that goes along with it. The capabilities of what they can eventually achieve is just phenomenally amazing. Like, share, subscribe. This is Shane from Shane's Reviews. I'm not sure which one of these books over here, I'm not sure which one of these reviews over here YouTube's gonna have you watch, or which one you would pick. But if you do pick one, I will see you in the next video. Peace.